After a man starts dreaming about the apocalypse, he will do everything possible to build a shelter to protect his family, even if it means losing his friends and even his job as a result. That's why today, take shelter. Remember that if you like the videos, you can support the channel by liking, subscribing, and turning on notifications. It's free and really helps me keep growing. Let's get started. During a strange storm, we meet our protagonist today, named Curtis, who stands under the rain, which is curiously orange like oil. After a shower, he returns to his wife, Samantha, and daughter Hannah, making it seem like it was all a dream. He has to speak to her using sign language because she is deaf, asking her not to feed the dog so it doesn't get used to it. Later, he goes to work with his friend Duar, who tells him they won't be able to finish because there's a cloud nearby, so it might start raining soon. Although it's all just an excuse to delay progress, leaving it for tomorrow. On the other hand, Samantha spends the afternoon with her friends, including Nat, Duarte's wife, until she sees the little girl playing with a stick she shouldn't touch because it's the remains of a construction her father is working on. A while later, we see that it really started to rain heavily, forcing the workers to end the day earlier. They take the chance to visit a bar and unwind before going home, where Curtis takes his friend while listening to him talk about having problems with his wife, unlike himself who has a good life with his family. Then when he gets home, the girl tells him it was a quiet day. It's just that Hans still doesn't count on the other kids because he can't communicate with everyone. She also asks him to clean the yard to remove dangerous objects. The following day, the protagonist sets out despite the worsening storm, with tornadoes forming in the distance. At the same time, his dog goes crazy, so much so that it breaks the rope holding it and attacks him, breaking his arm. Fortunately, it was another one of his strange dreams, even though he felt the pain of the bite. As he faints, he pushes his daughter away to protect her, disregarding his wife's words, unwilling to share his dream with her. Later in a work meeting, he can't concentrate because he's looking at his arm, searching for some mark since he still thinks it was all real. But he has to answer his boss about the delay they had yesterday because of the rain. Now we see him helping Duart with the excavator until it fights back. He rests while watching a flock of birds flying unusually in a way he had never seen before. He asks his friend, but his friend can't hear him over the noise from the machine. In a scene change, he arrives home to find Samantha upset since he was supposed to get home much earlier because there's a meeting at Hannah's school. So he goes, covered in mud, to learn more about sign language. Before spending some time with her, he takes the opportunity to apologize. Then he goes to his car in the middle of the rain, making sure the little girl is okay with him. As he accelerates, he notices a person on the road, forcing him to swerve and crash into a tree, rendering him unconscious. When he wakes up, he sees the frightened little girl, but someone breaks the windows to attack him and takes her away before he can intervene. Although it's just another bad dream from which he wakes up somewhat traumatized. When his wife sees him, she notices he seems sick and asks him to stay, because since it's Saturday, she's going to take Hannah to her job, reminding him that they have a lunch tomorrow, which they could cancel if he really feels bad, but he insists that it's no problem. So they go shopping to build a caged house in the yard for their dog, in which he leaves him locked up there. Out of fear that his dream might come true, Regun can't help but look at his old basement, which he hasn't opened in a long time. He searches for the key to stay there until his family arrives, asking him what did the dog do to deserve the punishment of being left outside. However, he insists that he just needs a little time without the barking inside, even though the dog has spent his whole life inside the house. Meanwhile, he hears the news about a couple who got trapped in their home with a cloud of toxic gas and died 11 hours later, unable to do anything to save themselves. Hours later, he searches for Hannah, who is watching a stranger attempting to forcibly break in through the window, just as everything begins floating, leaving him breathless. And even though it's another nightmare, he wakes up wetting the bed, so he tries to keep his wife from seeing him like that. Unfortunately, he yells at her to get her attention, which gets him into trouble with her. Today is the day of the lunch when he must stay with the girl until everyone arrives. So he's asked for the doctor's number before apologizing for his behavior. Now, he washes the sheets to go out with Hannah to the library looking for books that will help him understand what he's going through. And when he returns to the car, he stops at the supermarket to make an impulsive purchase of food. However, he forgets that Samantha's family is waiting for him at home for lunch. So he ends up arriving very late, making everyone wait for him. While they're hungry, obviously none of them like that. The next day, he goes to the doctor to explain his problem sleeping, telling him about the dreams that seem very real, due to all they've done to him. So the man gives him a prescription for a mild medication, along with the phone number of a psychiatrist colleague who might be able to help him with his problem. Afterwards, he goes to a pharmacy to buy what was prescribed to him. But since it's so expensive, he pays for most of it using his work insurance. At the same time, we see his wife in an office where they get her the information of a specialist for an implant for their daughter because of her deafness. This makes her completely excited because she has been waiting for a long time. When they meet that night, she appears very happy with the good news. They even play with the girl, asking how excited she is. The girl explores family trip options in the room before he takes the new medicine, which for the first time in days lets him sleep peacefully. The next day, at work, he talks with Dewar about how much food would be needed to survive for a week. Right when he hears some thunder, even though the sky is clear, noticing his friend's lack of surprise, he quickly walks away to vomit. Now, overwhelmed by what's going on in his head, he decides to visit his mother, whom he hasn't seen in many years, because he doesn't even know Hannah since she was admitted for mental health problems, which he takes as an opportunity to ask how it all started, afraid that it might also be his case. However, realizing that the symptoms are different, he returns home wondering what to do without telling his wife much. More than that, he went to see his mother before making a shopping list to remodel the old garden basement. However, lacking sufficient funds, he visits the bank to request a loan. Later at work, he asks his friend for help to turn the basement into a tornado shelter, as a precaution in case something happens at any moment. Then he goes to a woman and explains that he's afraid he might have schizophrenia because he took some tests and books he found and thinks he has psychological delusions. But as a counselor, not a psychiatrist, she can only recommend who he should see, unless he just wants to talk to her to get things off his chest. So he tells her how his mother started. In a scene change, we see him working at the shelter while Amanda works. When he arrives and sees the process, he gets upset because she didn't tell him. He gets even more upset when they discuss where she got the money. Since they will have big expenses in the future, it's not worth taking out a loan for a shelter they won't need. When she asks him to explain his recent strange behavior, he chooses not to say anything to avoid worrying her. He didn't even mention the sleeping prescription from his doctor, which he decided to triple, hoping for a stronger effect. However, that only makes things worse because in the middle of the night, he wakes up convulsing, making his wife so scared that she calls emergency services until he comes to, taking the phone to cancel it because he doesn't want help from anyone. As a result, he is forced to tell the girl about his dreams, adding that tonight it was a fight with Duarte in the middle of the storm, which in fact complicates things in his life because the next day she looks at him with doubt at work. She even asks her boss to remove him from her team because she doesn't want to work with him. Later, he visits a store to purchase gas masks before resuming the shelter's construction. Just then, her brother Kyle A. arrives, whom the girl called to make him come to his senses about what he's doing. He fails to achieve it as he's determined to continue. Before leaving, he asks if he's still looking to adopt a dog for his daughters and gives him his own to avoid sending it to the shelter. The following day, he finds his wife in the kitchen, drenched from the rain outside. Only that when he notices she's acting strange, suspiciously looking at a knife, while he asks her not to do it because he knows she's planning to attack him. However, as expected, it was just another dream. But due to her actions, he now views her differently, believing she might attack him at any time. Because the boss is there watching the shelter, since Dewar told him that he brought work equipment without permission for this. Motivated by the equipment change that our protagonist asked for, causing them to get fired, because he broke many rules. When he tells Samantha, she becomes worried because her insurance would cover the girl's transplant. Since he's unemployed, the insurance won't cover anything, so she slaps him before leaving. In a scene change, he goes back to the counselor, Only this time, there's a man in her place who tells him that she won't be coming back because she moved to another department. So he asks him to start his story from scratch to help him, but Curtis prefers to leave rather than explain the same thing to someone else. Later, when the girl returns home, she goes to him to ask if he was in her dream, because of the reaction he had earlier when she tried to touch him. After hearing the confession, she says she doesn't want to leave him, but will need to see a psychiatrist and get another job to pay for Hannah's transplant. Later, he attends a gathering with friends, which he was reluctant to go to. Samantha convinced him to attend, as she wanted to do something normal with the family. Dewart watches him from a distance, as they haven't spoken since the firing. While eating, he notices people looking at him strangely. His friend approaches and asks, "Why are you here?" Since he has told everyone what he's doing at home with his shelter. And since he obviously wants to fight, Curtis confronts him, hearing that he's upset because thanks to him, he also got punished at work with weeks without pay. As a result, he strikes him, not wanting to hear his apology, delivering a severe blow to his leg that leaves him on the ground. So our protagonist explodes, shouting at everyone that he's not crazy because he knows a giant storm is coming to put the city in danger. But when he realizes that even his daughter fears him, he breaks down in tears, and his wife consoles him. She truly understands his struggle, as his actions stem from fear due to recurring nightmares, not anger. Days later, while fixing the car, the girl quietly walks toward the street. So he runs to protect her before something bad happens to her. Just when he sees the birds flying strangely again, although when he hears a thunderclap, the birds turn against him before they start dying. Curiously, Samantha also wakes him up from that dream. But this time he has to get up quickly because the city alarms are going off, since there's a big storm that forces them to run to the shelter. Once there, he makes sure to close it completely from the inside to look for some oxygen for the little girl. At the same time, they hand out gas masks because since they don't know what might happen, they need everyone to be well protected. After a while, when he wakes up, he goes to the door wondering if it's over, but when he touches it, he feels how the thunder is still breaking the sky. Later, a family member wakes him saying the storm passed and asks him to open the door, as outside there's only peace, even though he insists that the door still echoes the thunder of the storm. He even asks Hannah if she can feel it too, but she says no. Like Curtis, he feels unable to fight his instincts. He gives his wife the key to open it. She clarifies that even if she complies, his apocalyptic fear will persist. So it has to be him who opens that door to prove to himself that things are okay. Finally, as a great act of love for his family, he does it, realizing the sun has already risen. There are even workers fixing the damaged electricity, along with the neighbors picking up the few branches that broke off the trees, because it seems that the storm wasn't as catastrophic as he expected. The couple is taking him to a professional psychiatrist for an examination, who advises him to stay away from the shelter for a while so he can forget about the need to use it, recommending that they take the vacation they had already planned. Along with medication to help him improve, he will need to be admitted to a psychiatric hospital. In a change of scene, our protagonist is playing with the little girl on the beach when she tells him in sign language that there is a storm nearby. Even Samantha is able to see it because this time it's real, being something so big that no one has ever faced it before. Although there will always be the doubt whether Curtis's prophecy came true or if it's just another nightmare. This was Take Shelter. Remember to comment about other movies you'd like to see, subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss upcoming videos.